Just when you think Donald Trump can't sink any lower, he finds a shovel. We've all just learned about the tragic murder of Hollywood legend Rob Reiner, and Trump's response, well, it has to be seen to be believed. It is one of the most disgusting things I have ever seen a political leader say. If you believe there should still be a floor of basic decency in our politics, show your support by hitting the like and subscribe buttons, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. Now, let's watch this together and then I'll give my 2 cents at the end.
Posted this. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before. May Rob and Michelle rest in peace. You know, I've got to say, Cenk, that just crosses every line of just basic human decency to me. Yeah, Rob Reiner was murdered last night by his troubled, unhinged son. And to make political capital, and what angers me about it, is there was all the outrage from Trump supporters, rightly, when the left mocked Charlie Kirk after he was murdered. And I thought we'd reached a kind of consensus that this, whatever side of the divide you're on, this is just unacceptable. That when people get murdered, you just show basic respect. And it's just happened as we came on air. And I just thought we've got to start with this, because when you're the most powerful man in the world, listen, everyone knows I've known Trump a long time. But this is one of those times when many times he's been like this when big public figures have died. I remember it with John McCain. I remember it with Colin Powell. And each time I just wince at the lack of basic decency. What is your reaction to that?
Well, you saw that I came on here and I was brokenhearted when Charlie Kirk was killed. And I condemned the people celebrating it because, my God, if you're part of the peace movement, you're on the left, etc. We're supposed to be for nonviolence more than anybody else. So, and that was disappointing at that time. And then Donald Trump, among others, said it was the most outrageous thing they'd ever seen. For him to do it now to Rob Reiner, I mean, and for what? For what? I mean, did this guy advocate for some heinous thing? Not at all. And here's what I want people to understand about Rob Reiner. So he was obviously an enormous figure in Hollywood. Some of the movies that we all love, like Stand By Me, When Harry Met Sally, etc., right? But on top of that, here's something that no one could argue with. Rob Reiner was a true American patriot. He loved this country. Now, whether you agreed with him or disagreed with him on any issue, he's a guy who put his heart into this country and always tried to make it better. You could see patriots like that, whether they're on the right or the left, who deeply care about their fellow man. And Rob Reiner was definitely one of those people. He was the best of us. And to die in such a tragic way, and then to have the president of the United States rub it in and somehow make it about himself. Look, I could get angry at Donald Trump. We've all been angry at Donald Trump. But if you're on the right, more than anything else, you should just be deeply disappointed. Is this what you wanted? Is this the ha-ha, you're dead kind of mentality that you wanted? It sounded like after Charlie died that you really, really didn't want that you thought it was a terrible thing to do.
Well, that's the
excuses.
Point. Yeah, look, that's the point, Gillian, that I would make, is it's going to be very interesting to me what people on the conservative right in America say by way of their reaction to what Donald Trump has said here. Because if there's any support for this from MAGA, from his supporters, his friends, from anyone, then it flies completely in the face of that whole debate after Charlie Kirk, when so many on the left behaved disgustingly. I remember calling it out at the time. And then here, the idea that he was murdered because of something to do with his views of Donald Trump, which is complete nonsense. I'm not just disappointed. I'm angry with it.
I completely agree with you and Cenk here. I will say that when I woke up and learned about this, it was on Brandon Tatum's Instagram, and he actually showed the clip of you talking to Rob Reiner. So my hope is that any reasonable person on the right or the left finds political violence disgusting, any support of it disgusting, and I'm with both you and Cenk. There's zero pushback over here. I'm extremely disappointed in the way Trump
it's not even,
this.
There's not even a suggestion it's political violence in this case, right? We don't know why the son did this.
Well, either way, if Trump was trying to imply that it was because of Trump derangement syndrome, any violence of any kind,
I don't think he was.
Reprehensible. I'm not quite sure exactly what he was trying to imply, but I'm disappointed by his response. I have yet to see anybody on the right endorse that statement or celebrate the death of Rob Reiner. I certainly hope we don't, and I promise you that I would absolutely condemn anybody who does that.
Right. Let me bring Mujahid in. I want to play a clip. This is another clip from the interview I did with him. I spoke to him for 45 minutes, literally in mid-September. It was a great interview, and I was very struck actually by the more mollifying tone that he took throughout this interview about Trump, who he has been very critical of in the past. There's no question. He's ranted away about Trump like many in Hollywood have done. But in that interview, he struck a very different tone. And here's him talking about Trump and the fact the left kept calling him Hitler. Senator Ted Cruz has come out and said that people should stop using the Nazi rhetoric. And I feel very strongly about this. I think that you can absolutely go after Donald Trump in an aggressive way, but calling him Hitler or calling his supporters Nazis, I think crosses every acceptable line.
It doesn't get you where you want to be. I don't really know very many things that I agree with him on, but I also feel that if you go name calling like that, it's not going to get you what you want. You have to rally people around the things that you agree with that are in disagreement with Donald Trump. And to me, the one area that, again, we both agree on is the freedom of speech and in the Constitution, First Amendment.
There's an irony there with Jahat about the name calling, because I don't know what Donald Trump thinks he'll achieve with this rant about Rob Reiner, as his body is still warm from this brutal murder. But whatever he thinks it will achieve, it will only, I think, anger and disappoint a lot of Americans, if not all Americans. And I just don't understand why he would use his gigantic platform so soon after someone is murdered to do this.
The harsh truth is this is who Donald Trump is. This is who he has always been. He's been cruel. He's been vulgar. He's lacked empathy. I mean, you just saw this right now. I'm glad you brought it up because I read it right before I came on your show. Rob Reiner and his wife, it seems that they were brutally and tragically murdered by their son, who apparently had mental health issues and drug problems. He was a beloved director. And you're seeing Donald Trump right now, who is the president of the United States, folks. He's the commander in chief. He's the representative of our country. And you just hope any president, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter what they say is this a terrible tragedy, thoughts and prayers. Simple as that. But we've seen Donald Trump just even recently with Erica Kirk. I was on your show and we all praised. It was a consensus amongst the panel that when she forgave the alleged shooter, Tyler Robinson, we all said that was very brave and a beautiful thing to do at the Arizona rally. What did Donald Trump do right after she said it? She goes, I don't forgive. I'm not as forgiving. Like, why would you say that? And then also after he survived the assassination attempt, if you remember at the RNC, Piers, he had that patch on his ear. They gave him a script. He was supposed to be decent, kind, meditative for the first 20 minutes. And then he mocked and ridiculed Paul Pelosi, who survived an assassination attempt by David DePape. So this is who he is. And Piers, if I may say, he's been like this for 10 years. I've been saying it. Cenk's been saying it. Roland's been saying it. For everyone waking up today, where you been? This is who he is.
Well, where I've been, I've always called it out when he's done it after people die. I think there's a particularly distasteful aspect, and I'll bring Emily in here. When people have just been murdered, whether it's Charlie Kirk, whether it's Rob Reiner, it doesn't matter to me what their politics are. when they've been brutally murdered, the only decent, civilized human thing to do is to just be respectful or do nothing. You know, if your genuine feeling is what he's just ranted, well, don't say it.
Right. I feel like as the president of the United States, he does not, with all due respect, have any obligation to need to tweet about Rob Reiner. I feel like he has, you know, other things going on, and that's reasonable. If I were in Trump's inner circle, would I had told him to post this? Probably not. I'd suggest strongly for him to just not say anything at all. The first I'm ever hearing of Rob Reiner is that he has Trump derangement syndrome, and that still doesn't change any of my empathy towards him. I didn't know who he was. I'm hearing now he was talented. In fact, one of the first impressions I've had of him was Donald Trump's tweet. But I really think we're doing a disservice by drawing parallels from this to political violence, even bringing up Charlie Kirk's murder. I get why you brought it up, Piers, because you're saying, well, if you don't like how the left celebrated his death, don't celebrate this. But nobody's celebrating Rob Reiner's death. I hope, as Julian said,
well, it sounds like Donald Trump is getting. Yeah, but look, it does sound like he's getting pretty close to it. I mean, when he says that, you know, he got killed reportedly due to the anger he caused others with his mind-crippling disease, Trump derangement syndrome. There is zero evidence for any of that. He got killed by his deeply disturbed son after what the TMZ and New York Post and others are reporting was a terrible family argument. The son, Nick, who's now 32, was a screenwriter who'd battled and talked openly made a film about drug addiction, homelessness, and so on. But apparently, you know, used whatever kind of implement to slit the throats of his parents.
Yeah.
You know, I
hear you. I'm not justifying it.
So I don't think there's any political motivation for this attack whatsoever. But Donald Trump has made it political by inferring very clearly that this happened because Rob Reiner attacked him, and that to me is where
I disagree. I disagree, Piers. I'll tell you what I think his intention was, and I will also preface by saying he did not get the message across. I feel like his intention was, hey, everybody, look, although this man hated me, and although he had Trump derangement syndrome, he ended it, you know, putting us together with may they rest in peace, whatever. I feel like what his intention was even though I disagree with him, the guy died, and I'm sorry for him. He did that in possibly the worst way.
Stop it.
And I just don't feel like this is really shocking to anybody here. I feel like we've all been following Trump over the last 10 years. And as Wajahat said, that's his style. You know, you like it or not, that's who he is. This tweet was wrong, but it's not, you know, necessarily so shocking for all of us to see. And also, it shouldn't be blown out of proportion.
I actually did find it quite shocking. And I have known Trump a long time. I am a friend of Trump's, good, bad, and ugly. And I got to say, Roland, there's no defense for this.
No, there's no defense. I don't know what the hell I just heard. Let's be clear. He has no morals, no values, no decency, no ethics, no principles. This is who he is. This is not a shock at all. He's a narcissist. He is someone who makes everything about him. And so this is who this man is. This is who he was, not in the last 10 years, Piers, but going back to when he was descending down those escalators. Going before that, the whole thing with Obama and the birther. This is who this man is.
Well, he's always been a trash talker. So I'm not Roland, hang on.
Not trash talker.
Hang on a second. Look, he's always been a trash talker. Right, he's a New York real estate guy. He's a trash talker, and I would say, I would say, I know, I'm going to come to that. In relation to general trash talk, my God, the left talk trash about him. Right, as I said in that clip. So all the Hitler stuff and Nazi stuff, all that, you know, it's a two-way street. The trash talking. This is a particular thing. Which angered me. It angered me when I saw his reaction to Colin Powell dying, to John McCain dying. You know, I just think there's just got to be on all sides when public figures like this die, whether they're great politicians or they're great movie people, whatever it is, there just has to be a basic decency. If people get killed or murdered or whatever it is, or die after great lives and careers, just either be decent or don't say anything.
Here's the deal. This all sides is nonsense. Chris, listen, the regular average person who's out there on social media, that's one thing. But it's called being a statesman for a reason. I'm literally sitting here, I grabbed my book, Master of the Senate, of LBJ, and it was amazing. Cairo talks about how LBJ, how when he was president, how he spoke and moved differently publicly than he did when he was majority leader of the Senate, because he saw the presidency and the respect for the institution. This person has none. This is no shock. There's a reason I don't even call him president, because he does not rise to the occasion in that way. This is who he is. He will degrade people. He will say these things. I am not shocked by it because he is despicable in this way. Well, and there's no defense. There's no, I think he meant, he meant exactly what he wrote.
Okay, look, I want to move on to Australia, but I do want to end by just playing a clip, another clip from that interview with Rob Reiner, which I think is a nice way to remember him, because ironically, I said to him, because we've just been talking about Charlie Kirk, I said, Rob, when the day comes when you're no longer with us, and I hope it's not for a long time, very ironic given what's now happened, but I said, I would love to know, out of all your movies, which one would you choose? And he said this: should the moment come when we need to remember the work of Rob Reiner, which is the one for you of everything you've ever done that you would most like to be remembered for?
I always say Stand By Me, to me, is the one that meant the most to me. I don't know that it's the best, it's for other people to decide, but it's the one that meant the most to me because it really is an extension of my personality and my sensibility. It has a mixture of humor and melancholy and emotion, and it's something that is closest to me of all the films I've done.
And he went on to say a really moving thing, which was, I said my favorite one of his movies was When Harry Met Sally, which I think in many ways is almost a perfect movie. Brilliantly written, brilliantly directed, brilliantly acted, and a perfect length. And he talked about the fact that it was about 90 minutes. And he said the number of people that would come up to him who said on New Year's Eve, which obviously we're just a few weeks away from now, on New Year's Eve, they would start watching it at 10:30 at night on New Year's Eve, so that at the precise moment of the New Year's Eve denouement to the movie, people would actually celebrate the new year and how much he loved that. And that is actually how I'd love Rob Reiner to be remembered, as somebody who actually moved people with the power of his movies. And my God, he had so many great movies. And they were movies of warmth and love and humor and hope and all the things you would want in society. And that is how he should be remembered, I think. So,
Piers, can I make a quick comment about his amazing career? Just real quick, just for Emily, if you want to go rent some of his movies. Rob Reiner had a generational run of movies for a decade. I just want to name them. I think I could get them at the top of my head in a row. This is Spinal Tap, The Sure Thing, Stand By Me, Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, Few Good Men. All in a row.
I heard of When Harry Met Sally. I'm gonna watch it.
I mean, name me another director with that type of a run.
God.
And in addition, just to being, everyone who knew him said, regardless of what you think about his politics, a really decent, loving, caring man who cared passionately about people, championed rights for women, LGBTQ folks, and cared about our democracy and preserving it.
Someone did a great tweet. This was Dan Perlman on X. He said, Rob Reiner directed the best American rom-com, When Harry Met Sally, the best coming-of-age film, Stand By Me, the best fantasy comedy, Princess Bride, the best mockumentary, This Is Spinal Tap, and the best courtroom drama showdown, A Few Good Men. He did all that and so much more. So look, I want to move on, but I do think that is how Rob Reiner should be remembered, and not for Trump derangement syndrome, which I'm sad to say says more about the president for saying that than it does about Rob Reiner. Right.
So what we just saw was a bright flashing red line being crossed. This isn't about left versus right. It's about decency versus depravity. In a moment that called for grace, or at the very least silence, Donald Trump chose cruelty. He chose to mock a man who was just brutally murdered, and in doing so, he revealed a profound and disturbing lack of basic human empathy. Roland Martin said it best: no morals, no values, no decency. Trump showed everyone exactly who he is. The real question is for his supporters. Is this the man you want leading the country? A man who dances on the graves of his political opponents? So, what do you think? What was the most shocking part of his statement to you? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that like button for more. Thanks for watching.